Hi everyone, it's Matt Kaufman, and I'm back again with another episode of Q&A with Matt K. Today we're doing things a little different. It's just me today. Chris is not available, but he sent me a question that he found on the Trailhead message boards at the Trailblazer Community, and I didn't look at it ahead of time. I did just open it, but I tried not to read it. So I have not prepared. We're still unscripted. We're here to make me sweat and see what I can do as quickly as possible with no preparation. So before we begin, like Chris always says, please remember to like and subscribe. It definitely helps us continue to provide this free resource to everyone when you do that. And also, if you have any questions, Chris does look on the Trailblazer community all the time for questions that we can answer. But you can also send them to us and fill out this form that we have right here. And that way your questions will get answered. And if you post a question on the forums and you want us to answer it, you can just send us the link to it too. That'll work also. So with no further ado, let's see if I can figure out how to run this show on my own. We're going to go ahead and look at my screen here. And I'm going to zoom in. And this is the question that Chris sent me. It is Apex related, and I can handle that. So that's good. It looks like Sam here has posted some Apex code, and he says that he needs test coverage, which is something I think most people would charge to write. But I will do my best to get this done quickly. I think I can do it pretty quickly. I'm not going to place any bets as to how quickly I can do it, because those of you that watch know that I often will go on tangents, and especially when it comes to code, we like to refactor a lot too. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and then we'll jump over. Let's go ahead and copy this class from here. We'll get the whole thing. And then we'll jump over to my VS Code. And I'm going to create a new class here. Oh, what was the name of it? It was send an email chalk. So I just lost my copy. And so we're going to do it one more time. Create Apex class, send an email chalk. Interesting. And then we'll come here and copy this one more time. And then I'll paste it in there. I may end up reformatting it just to kind of make it easier to read. I definitely will zoom in for everyone at home to make that easier to read too. Let's zoom out just a little. Okay, so I'm assuming that this is valid code. I'll try to deploy it, and we'll see if it actually is valid and compiles. And if it does, then I can focus just on then I could focus just on the test coverage. But it does not compile because apparently it references an object. And I don't have that object because this is something in Sam's org. And the name of the object is a chalk. A chalk? A chalk? So I'm going to jump to my org. Let's go ahead. I have it open already, and I'll create a new object. And we'll just create that custom object, and we'll call it a chalk. Let's go ahead and do that. So the object name in the code had the S in there. I didn't make that up. And let's just leave it like that. So now we'll come back to VS Code, and I'll right click and deploy and see if it compiles now. And now that I have the object, it should compile unless there's something else that is missing. So let's see what this is. Page CHK does not exist. So he must be referencing a visualforce page, it sounds like. Wow, this is making my job harder than I thought it was going to be. Where can I find it? CHK. There we are. Page CHK. Okay, so now I got to create a visualforce page as well. And of course, I don't have the pages folder in here. So a great way, if you don't know the name of the metadata API entities, you can use this little cloud here, and you can see what is available and then pull those into your org. Now, if you don't have any, though, it may not create the folder. And this one didn't. I happen to know it is pages, so I'm going to go ahead and click new folder, and then click pages, and here we are. And now I'll click new, create visualforce page, and I'm going to create a page called CHK. I have no idea what this page does, and it honestly doesn't matter for the purpose of my test coverage. As long as I can get this class to compile, I should be able to get sufficient test coverage, should being the keyword, for the class. Let me try that one more time. Okay, so my visualforce is compiled. My Apex is compiled. Great. I would love to run prettier and clean this up, and I might do that at some point. But what I need to do right now is actually create a new class. This is going to be the test class. So for those of you that are familiar with the platform, we are required to create 75% or higher test coverage for all of the business code that we write. And I'm going to go ahead and send an email chalk tests. So I'm just going to create a class here called send an email chalk test, and I'm going to get rid of this boilerplate. There we are. And we have the beginning of, oh, did I say chat tabs? I apologize to everyone watching at home wondering what I'm doing. We use spaces. So we have the boilerplate of a test class here. And basically this test class needs to simulate the execution or the running of all of the business logic in this class. And that's how we get our test coverage, is by doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and try to see, what does this class actually do? And so I see that there's an invocable. Invocable methods are going to be methods that can be called from flow. That doesn't matter. I don't need to actually run flow. I can go ahead and just call this method just like I would any other method. And it looks like Sam is doing a query at the top. So that's going to be difficult for me to do unless I insert some data. And it looks like this query is going to be based on the IDs. So right away, I know that in order to get test coverage on at least this line here where I'm doing the query, and then because I'm looping through the results of the query, actually, I'm not looping through the results of the query. I'm looping through this list up here. So maybe that's okay. Maybe I don't need full coverage. So I don't have to get 100%, right? I could just do less than that. What I want to do right now actually is start running this test to see what test coverage we have so far. Now we should have no test coverage, right? Because I haven't actually done anything. In fact, yeah, look at that, I can't run it. So I'll have this ready. And if I come back here and I deploy this, now I should be able to go back to the developer console. And there are multiple places where you can run these tests. I just kind of like the developer console. And many people are familiar with it. Oh, it's still not showing up. Lovely. Let's see if I can get something to show up here. So let's call this send email with attachment test or something like that, right? Unit test. And I'm gonna invoke this. So this is a static method, so I'm just gonna call it like that. I need to pass in a list of IDs. Okay, we're not done yet. This is not, even if I got 100 here, I still wouldn't be done. There's more that I need to do, but this is a starting point. So let me try, see if I can get this to show up now. There we go, send an email chalk. So I'm gonna run this test and we'll be able to see the results here in the browser. So we're gonna click on the test tab here and we can see the test pass. That's great. Of course, I didn't do much. And here on the right-hand side, let's see if I can zoom in a little. Yeah, that looks much better. We can see that I have 12% coverage. I need 75 at least. And so it's 3 out of 25 lines are covered. I can click on that and it'll actually show me what lines are covered, what lines are not. And so here we can see. So basically, because I didn't pass in any IDs, this for loop is not going to do anything inside. We're not going to be within the for loop. And so that's what's happening there. So let's come back to the code and see what's happening. So it basically opens up this visualforce page and it's going to create an attachment record, it looks like. And it's gonna, I assume, insert the attachment record. That's my guess. Oh, look at that. So it's gonna use the ID from the chalk record. Oh, and then it sends an email too. Oh boy. Okay, so this is going to be harder to get test coverage. We're doing a lot of different stuff here. I probably would refactor this if it was my own code, but I don't know if we'll get to that today. And oh, there's even more. Okay, I'm just going to quickly see if I can. There we go, a little better. See what's going on. Okay, so we need to get this code to run. The way we're going to do that is by passing in an ID. So I'm going to compile this cleaned up version a little. I'm going to come back to my test class. And there's a useful feature. No, where is it? Yeah, it is test setup. Yeah. So there's a useful feature inside Apex Test where we can insert sample data, insert test data. And so I want to insert one of these chalks records. What did I call it? There we go. C equals new. Okay, and this would be a way to insert one, right? And then I'm going to have to get it when I run my unit test. And I might have multiple unit tests by the end of the video. And so what I'm going to do normally is select it. And I like to put limits just to be safe. It should not have more than what I've inserted, but you never know what someone's going to do in the future. I also typically will move this to its own method and refactor because will have multiple unit tests in this class. And that way I don't have to rewrite the code over and over. So I'll probably do that too before we're done. And so then what I'm doing here is I'm using the test start and test stop methods, which basically resets the limits. So within any given Apex transaction, we have certain governor limits. And sometimes when you're setting up a scenario, you're going to actually kind of encroach on the limits of the business logic. And so to separate that, we have our limits here that are going to happen before we start our test. And then we get a new set of limits for within the test. And so this is going to be really useful if you have a complex test. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, compile this. We're going to jump back as soon as it's done compiling to the developer console and close this and just run that test again. And let's see if I can get this to show up on the screen. I'm zoomed in like crazy for those of you at home. And let's see the results. The results are, okay, it passed again. I love seeing the green. We have 16% now, so we got more coverage slightly. I would think it'd be more. So I must have done something wrong. And I already figured out what it is. I'm going to jump back here. Even though I did the query, I didn't pass in any IDs right here. That's the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and it wants a list of IDs. Let's do test records. I think that actually will work. I think there's some hidden features inside Apex. Nope, it won't. Let's do this then. I'm going to turn this into a map of ID to chalk, and a map has a method to get the key set, which is a set of IDs. And you can then pass in a set into a list constructor, and that should compile. So let's see if I get rid of these red lines here. Not much better. Okay, map ID equals, I need the word new. Wait a second. Try it one more time. All right, okay, perfect. So let's come back to here. So we're at 4 out of 25 right now, or 16%. We're gonna choose a new run. And remember, this is unscripted, unpracticed. Oh, we got a failure. Okay, well, that's interesting. I like that because we can actually now figure out what's going on and try to get past it. Okay, so methods defined as test method do not support get content call. I have a feeling Sam actually tried to get test coverage, couldn't get it, and rather than show his code, which was having an error, he may have just said, can somebody help me? So we do have situations like this where you're not allowed to do certain things inside test coverage classes or methods. We have a couple ways of working around it. In some situations, like doing callouts, there are these utilities that basically are built into Apex where we can provide like mock responses. Other situations, we actually want to update our business class to say, don't do this because it won't work. And so when possible, we want to allow the business logic to run fully. And so we would use a mock. For get content as PDF, that is like almost doing like a call out to a visualforce page. And that's why it's not allowed. Plus the PDF renderer is a slower process than getting other content. So what I'm going to do is modify this business logic to do something like this. If test is running test, and we'll do one thing, and then else we'll do another. And I kind of wish I had actually like cheated and looked ahead of time to see if there's a mock available for get content as PDF. I don't think there is. And so you want to provide something here if we are running a test. So I'm going to do that. And so now we shouldn't get that error anymore because we're going to be executing this code within the testing framework. So we're going to go through this line on 16. We're not going to go to line 18 whenever we run this from this screen when we're running a test. If we were to actually invoke the code with a trigger or anything like that, or a flow, then yeah, it's going to go through the real code and not this test only code. Okay, so the red X is gone. We got a green. And look at that, we're at 96%. I could be done right now. There's a couple more things that I will do just because they're the right things to do and I have some time. So let's see what's not being covered. So this is not being covered. Of course it's not being covered because we can't cover it unless I do a search and look to see if we can. And maybe we will. So let's go ahead and choose get content as PDF. I'm going to just type this into my browser and do a search on my favorite search engine, get content as PDF, Salesforce, and we'll say mock and maybe Apex tests. And we'll see if there's anything here that says test methods. If you use get content as it fails, because it's like I said, it's like a call out. I swear I knew that off the top of my head. That was not something that I looked up ahead of time. But I've done this enough that I knew. Okay, so there's no mock, I don't think, available for this. So this is the best we can do, is to use the test as running test. You don't want to have this heavily throughout all your code. Ideally, you try to go through the full motions whenever you can, but sometimes it's just not possible. That's the world we work in. This email is not going to actually get sent. It's from a test, so we should be fine. It also, that's interesting. It looks like it's going to a fake email address. For whatever reason, this was hard-coded in Sam's Apex class. I'm not going to question it. I'll just provide the test coverage and he'll figure that out. So essentially I am done, but big but here. A best practice in your test classes are to actually kind of place a bet that your code works. And we call that an assertion. And so what I want to do is find something that I can say, yeah, this actually worked. I don't know what that's going to be yet. Let's see if we can figure it out. So what is this code doing? We're going to a page. We're inserting an attachment. The attachment is going to be on that chalk record. Okay. So then my bet, what I want to say is, once this is executed, I'm going to make a bet that there is an attachment. So I'm going to go ahead and do a query of attachments where the parent ID equals this test records map record that's in there, which is now a little tricky to do. Let me go ahead and refactor. And we'll make this a little easier, hopefully. Okay, hopefully I think that'll work, but let me make it a little better. Okay, so I'm just refactoring because, like I said, I tend to do that. And you'll see it'll all kind of fit together. So now I can get a list here of chalks And then this one is going to go inside my constructor. And then, because I happen to know that there's only one anyways, not that it matters, but equals test record 0.id. Okay, so I'm doing a query, and I probably will refactor this too and move this down here, right? But now I can do my assertion. And so I'm going to say assert. Now there's different ways of doing it. So there's a bunch of different options here. You can also do a system.assert, but I think it was about a year ago this new one came out. So assert dot, and let's say is true. We'll do an assert dot is true, and we'll say attachments dot size is greater than 0. And then this message here is what we want to display if we lost our bet, if we were wrong. So we would say something like the send email with attachments method did not insert an attachment properly. Maybe it's a really long message. I apologize. And I'm going to deploy that. We can do others too if we want. We could actually, open up the attachment and look at it. Okay, does it have the right name, of this name, which is going to be a little hard to do because the date time at the moment the test is run versus the date time that we're evaluating will probably be a little different. So it might be hard to guess that. But we could check to make sure that maybe the name ends with a PDF, right? We could do that. Now, I know for sure that these attachments don't already exist before this test is running because I inserted this chalk record when the test started. So there's no chance that I'm somehow querying a chalk record or an attachment that was already in Salesforce. We're specifying the ID here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to close it again. I'm going to hit test, new run, and let's run it one more time. And I'm hoping that we don't fail now, which if we don't, we didn't. That was fast. Okay, so now we have 96% coverage, which is probably the best we're going to get on this unless we refactor the code heavily and try to change the number of lines of code in there. We also have an assertion, so we're following the best practice. We could put more assertions in there if we want. Beyond that, to make this any better, I probably would have to refactor Sam's code. My preference would be that the inserting of attachment is within its own method, and the sending of an email is within its own method, and then those methods could actually be reusable. And maybe we use them in other places, and that could also help us maybe get better test coverage. But to answer the question that was posted, I think we just did it. This is the class. I'll zoom out a little just so that we can have a nice, pretty screenshot of a great Apex test class where we are getting over 90% coverage, and we have an assertion. So we're following best practices, and then I already refactored the one query. We could refactor the attachment query as well. The only other thing that I really probably should add to this is you normally want to test more than one record. So testing on one record is not the greatest test because often in Salesforce, we'll do things in bulk, whether it's because you're doing a data load or because you're doing stuff from a list view. So if I really wanted to do a good, robust test here, I would probably do something like this, where I say for integer I equals 0, I less than, and what I'm going to do is, what I like to do is something like this, num records, I++, and basically what that is this allows me to adjust the variable of how many I want to do. So I'm going to, up here at the top, have a static constant. And for now, I'll set it to 200. But once this is working and I've deployed it to production, at some point I could actually reduce it because I'll know that it works. Now, every time I introduce changes that are somehow affecting this or could affect this, I probably want to test again with 200. We don't need to do performance testing too much on the platform. Salesforce takes care of that. So I try not to over-test things if I know that they're working and the use case for them are such that we'll be within the limits. Test records, I add C, and then we're going to insert test records here. And then down here, I'm going to be querying up to 200 records. So actually, that's funny. Let's go ahead and change that with this. And so now this is the limit that we'll be querying no matter what. I'm going to deploy this, see if it works. This is a little more nerve-wracking because something could go wrong. I don't know what else is in this org. And luckily, this is a new object, so I think it'll be safe. But if I were working on an object that already existed, there could be flows or other things on there that I should probably take into account when I'm writing these tests. I guess the other thing that I should do is better maybe update my assertions as well, because ideally we would do an in and do something like this. So let's see if this will work. Key set, and okay, so then the size of my attachment should actually match the size of my map. So the number of chalk records I have should equal the number of attachment records. And I'm just going to do that. The other thing that sometimes I do here is instead of having like, you know, a generic error message, I might do something like this where I say, you know, we're expecting 200 attachments and we only got 150 or something like that. And I might do something like that. But for now, I'll leave it. I'm going to go ahead and run this test because honestly, I think at this point, I met all the requirements. And if Chris were here, I think he would say, great job, Matt. You did exactly what was needed, and I'll go post this for you, except for I got an error. So let's see what this error is. I may have spoke too soon. Too many email invocations. I'm in a developer org or a trail head sandbox where there's a limit to how many emails we can send. So that's hilarious. It was working with one. It's not working with more than one. Again, this is why we test with multiples. To get around this, we probably would refactor here. So let's see what's going on. Oh, well, yeah, the code needs to be refactored. Look at that. So I didn't see this before. I should have. So Sam is inserting an attachment within a for loop. And in general, we don't ever want to do DML within a for loop. So that needs to be refactored. So I'm going to go ahead and refactor that because I can't turn in any code that breaks such a violation of our best practices. And then the other thing that we need is a list of email messages. So messaging, single email message. So it wasn't necessarily the issue that I thought it was. There's a limit to how many times you can invoke the process for sending an email within a transaction. So yes, there's a limit in dev orgs so that you can't send out emails and spam people, but there's also a limit to just how many times you can even try to send an email using the methods built into Apex. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to go and attachments.add. So we won't insert the attachment within the for loop. And now here's the tricky part. I believe, yeah, the attachment's being added there. So I'm going to have to refactor this a little more. So here I'm going to do an insert of attachments. And then I'm going to do the exact same loop. But this time, I could put it into a map. So there are a couple ways to handle this. In general, if we do a for loop, we're going to do it in the same order throughout this entire execution. So I could do it that way. And that is fairly safe. I could also create a map or some type of structure where I keep the email and the attachment together. And that would work also. I wonder, you know what? I think I can actually reference this object. I'm not going to get into too much behind the technical aspect of this, but I can reference this object even before it's been inserted, and it will eventually work. It'll actually work when I get to the point that I need to send the email. So this is a pass by object, pass by reference issue. I'm not going to get into that in this call, but let's just say that it should work because we're not actually sending it at this point. We're sending it at this point down here on line 40, and the ID will exist at that point. And so Apex just takes care of it for us. And other programming languages can behave the same way. It just kind of depends on the language. So you just got to trust me on this one. And if you're interested, we could always do another call about it another day. Okay, so email messages.add. And we're going to add this to there. But I actually don't want to send the email, right? Because this is a test. So that's a little tricky. It was working before too. At least it seemed to. I'm hoping it didn't actually send any emails to anybody. Okay, let's see. if I can fix this typo. Well, there's a lot more changes today than I thought there would be. Chris threw a curveball for when he didn't show up. I will mention it to him later. Well, he'll watch this video too. Speaking of the video, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching this and seeing me struggle. It's always nice to know that you're not alone when you struggle. So please like and subscribe so that I can feel better. Wow, something didn't work again. Let's see what it is. Send email failed, email limit. Okay, so now I am getting the limit that I thought I was getting last time. Just to clarify, the first time the limit was, hey, you're trying to send an email too many times within a single Apex execution. Now the limit that I'm hitting is, you're not in a real Salesforce paid customer org. You can't send that many emails. And so I need to fix my code to not actually send the email. And so just like we did before with the is test is running test, I'm going to come here and do this. And so we'll only run it if it's not test is running test. So I'm going to say if this is false. And we'll deploy that. What this means is I'm going to have less test coverage now. So my options were have more test coverage with fewer records, set this to 1, or less coverage, but do a better test with more records. That seems to be where I'm at. It's unfortunate that I have to make that decision, but I'm very comfortable with 90% test coverage. I don't need 100. That is difficult to do. 90 can be difficult to do. And I now have 93% test coverage with probably just those 2 lines not showing up. It's the else here and this one here, because we're not going to be doing this within an actual business class. We're doing this within the testing framework. So test is running test is going to be true. And so we're not running that. And then we have our assertion. It's a great assertion. Let's come back here. Here we are. We're asserting that for every record, we are getting an attachment. I think the only other thing that I probably should assert, although it's not actually necessary, if you look at the logic, you could figure out that this is not necessary, but I sometimes like to do it just to make sure, kind of like a little sanity check. So sometimes what I do is an assertion at the beginning, just to make sure we actually did get some records. And then if for some reason we didn't, then I would be like, whoa, this test isn't running right. So often I will do this and just do something, say the number of test records is not correct, something like that. So that this should always pass this assertion. It's like a gratuitous assertion that will always pass. But if something ever breaks before this runs, because we create some type of validation rule on chocks or something like that, at least then I'll know, oh, I'm not testing 200 records anymore. So I'm going to do it one more time. At this point, I think everyone at home knows how to do it. But I'm going to run this test, just make sure that even that small change, which should not break anything, didn't break anything, just to be safe. And it didn't. And so I'm done. I love writing unit tests. I know it's a weird thing for some people to hear, but I like getting a score. I like having that, yes, you're done. It's good. I don't have to show it to somebody and say, what do you think? Do you think it should be this way, or do you think it should be that way? I got my score, I got my green check mark, and I'm good. And so I can be done now. So that answers Sam's question. I'll go ahead and post it so that he can have it. I'll have to post both the changes to the business logic as well as to the new test class. But we were able to do it pretty quickly. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, which is a little different than some of the ones that we've done in the past. I'm sure we'll see Chris again here next time. If you do have any questions, please feel free to submit them at the URL on the screen. And once again, like and subscribe. And I hope to see you soon. Have a good one.